Hi, welcome to another video. As I mentioned, on week 1, day 4 of my marathon training, I took a lactate threshold test. Lactate threshold test. Um, the reason I really took this test is to objectively measure what my lactate threshold is in terms of both heart rate and pace. Now, this is important to me because since this is the first time I am training for a marathon, I should know exactly what paces and what heart rates that I should be targeting for my easy runs, for my recovery runs, for my speed workouts, and my long runs. Um, and just purely relying on heart rate is not a it's not fun because heart rate varies on a lot of things. It depends. I drank too much coffee in the morning, my heart rate shoots up a little bit. If it's hot enough outside, it shoots up a little bit. If it's too cold, it may shoot up a little bit because your heart has to work harder to pump more blood to keep you warm. So there are a lot of factors. And that to me was not it's not an objective way. I don't function that way. So I thought I would find out something equivalent to a cycling FTP test that I'm used to. So in cycling, what I do is we take a 20-minute or maybe sometimes longer a ramp test where typically about 20 minutes, where you go all out for a 20-minute duration, and then the maximum power that you are able to output in the 20-minute duration, you take about 80% of that and you call it your FTP. So what that means is your FTP is an indication of what is the power output that you can sustain for up to an hour without needing any breaks or without your legs starting to burn. Um, so when I started my research on what's an equivalent of a cycling FTP test for running, I came across this 30-minute field test. Now, the way they prescribed to perform this test is to warm up thoroughly for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then the next 30 minutes of your workout, you gradually increase the pace and just sustain as high pace as you possibly could for 30 minutes, right? So you just go all out, give it everything you got for 30 straight minutes. And after that, take the last 20 minutes of your workout, and your average heart rate for the last 20-minute duration is your lactate threshold heart rate, and your average pace for the entire duration of the 30 minutes is your lactate threshold pace. I don't want to go into all the science and details on why only the last 20 minutes and why for the heart rate and why the entire 30 minutes for pace, but it's got to do with the reason why your heart rate will take some time to catch up to your effort, and that's why last 20 minutes would be a good indication. So anyway, I did that, and one important thing is in the 30-minute workout window, try to keep your pace as consistent as possible, as constant as possible. That way you would get much accurate pace numbers than just randomly going up and going down in your pace, which it's not really indicator of anything, because if you go fast and you slow down, you are recovering slightly and you're going fast again, which is probably a strategy in a real race, but it's not a great way to establish your training zones. In this test, you are supposed to feel exhausted after your 30 minutes, and if you're not exhausted, maybe you should go back and repeat that test. Anyway, let's talk about my test that I took. So I ran 30 minutes, as you see on my screen. I loaded up my workout in Training Peaks, and for the entire 30-minute duration, my average pace was 9 minutes 21 seconds per mile. Now, as I said, this is my lactate threshold pace. And for the 20-minute duration, the last 20-minute duration, my average heart rate was 185 beats per minute with a max of 192 beats per minute. Now, my lactate threshold heart rate is 185, the average for the duration of the 20 minutes. Now that I know my lactate threshold heart rate and my lactate threshold pace that I could sustain for an hour, the next step for me is to determine my training paces, right? Now for that, I use Jack Daniels V. calculator. Again, if you don't know about Jack Daniels, highly recommend reading his book, Jack Daniels Running Formula. Now I'm using his website where um, I could calculate my equivalent marathon paces based off of this time. Now, one important thing that I should say is what I've read and understood is your lactate threshold pace based off of this field test is some people say it for most runners it falls anywhere between a 10k pace and a half marathon pace. I chose a 10k pace because that would make me slightly slower over a half marathon for a half marathon, which is okay because I don't want to overestimate anything. Now, I go here and then I choose my 10k because it's a 10k pace and say 921 per mile, and 76 degrees Fahrenheit was approximately the temperature when I took the lactate threshold test, and I hit calculate. Now what it does is it spits out what are my equivalent race times given my inputs, which are my 10k pace and the temperature. As you see here, it is telling me that I should be able to finish running my marathon in about 4 hours 31 minutes at a 10 minute 21 second minute pace per mile, which is fine. Now I think it's realistic for me to target that based off of the data. The fact that I was able to sustain this pace for about 30 minutes tells me that this is realistic that I could target. Now before this, I did not know what I should be targeting, and the fact that this test enabled me to do that is great. I'm glad I took the test because I know this is realistic that I can achieve. Now let's play around with it a little bit, and let me show you what happens if I chose this as my 5k time instead, right? So if I choose this as my 5k time, sorry, I need to change this again. So let's say 9 minutes 21 seconds pace was my all right, there we go. I forgot to clear the time. There we go. Let's say this was my 5k time. It is telling me that I should be able to finish my marathon in about 4 hours and 41 minutes, which is still okay because I'm a first time marathoner. Now keep in mind that these paces and the times predictions that this tool is giving me is based off of my fitness as of today. Now I'll be training over the course of the next 20 weeks. I'll be getting fitter. So I am thinking it's as a stretch goal, I should be able to target a 10 minute, 18 second minutes pace and a 4 hour, 30 minute marathon finish time. That would be my stretch goal. So I think it's realistic based on my fitness level today. So yeah, so now what this has done to me is I exactly know what my target marathon pace is, so I could actually perform my weekly workouts at a certain paces, my easy runs, my recovery runs, my speed workouts, my long runs. I could actually dial down the exact pace that I should be targeting. And of course, looking at the heart rate to make sure on most days it doesn't go over 185 would give me a huge window in terms of my variability in the heart rate to actually target. To build my base and also build some speed. So that's really great. Now, so yeah, that's my lactate threshold test, and it helped me set my marathon target, which is 4 hour 30 minutes and 10 minute 18 second pace. I hope I can hit that, and we'll see you again on Tuesday when I start my week 2.